Good day, everybody, and welcome to the Grid Dynamics webinar. Today, our topic is how leading insurers are fostering innovation with a unified customer view. And I would like to thank you all so much for joining us today. We have an outstanding panel that is going to be talking about this topic. And there's a whole lot of change going on around this topic right now. And I think we should have an exciting discussion. I do want to say, though, that we really welcome you being a part of this discussion as our audience. So if you have any questions or thoughts and you'd like to chime in, you can use the Q&A button that's in the lower right-hand side of your screen. And feel free at any time to stick a question or a comment in there. And if we can fit that in and it's relevant to what we're talking about, we will do that, or we will hold it till the end. And we will most certainly cover your questions today as part of this. We really want it to feel interactive, and we really want you to join in. So we are excited to launch into this, and let me just share with you what our agenda is for today. First, I want you to meet the panel, and they are so outstanding. So each of them is going to tell you a little bit about their background. And then I will just give you a very short story about an experience I had in insurance. And finally, we're going to open it up for Q&A to our panel, and of course, open it up to all of you to participate with any questions or comments as well. So let's introduce our panelists. So Rebecca, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, June. I'm Rebecca Nickel. I work for Nationwide Insurance. I have worked for Nationwide for about 25 years in different parts of the property and casualty organization, sales, claims, service centers, our direct channel, our agency channel. But my roles have been focused in business technology and process improvement. And I'm currently responsible for Nationwide's partnership platform, which powers partnerships, strategic partnerships that we do with industry adjacent companies, as well as our API library that the enterprise uses.
That's fantastic. Really happy to have you here today, Rebecca. Vaishali, how about you?
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Vaishali Jain. I am from Zurich, North America. And I have been in Zurich, North America for the past 8 years now. Been in IT all while part of IT architecture, but mainly my focus has been business architecture. And I have, similar to Rebecca, I have worked with all different business domains as part of my role within ZNA, claims, underwriting, premium audit, and now I'm starting to work closely with finance and data as well. So it's very interesting how everything comes together. But the most interesting part of my journey with ZNA is the last couple of years where I spent time working on the digital program. I was an active participant there. And again, the focus was how can we make sure that our customers are fully engaged and are able to engage and interact with us in a manner that they feel comfortable with. So this topic is very close to my heart. Thank you, June, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Grid Dynamics.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Vaishali. And we're so excited to have you because you two bridge these two worlds, which is fantastic. Arti, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, June. My name is Arti Gupta, and I'm part of AWS. I work for AWS. I've been with Amazon for about 5 years now. And prior to that, I worked in the insurance space at various carriers like Progressive and Allstate Insurance for over 22 years. So most of my roles prior to joining Amazon have been on the business side. I've led different initiatives, especially in the actuarial space, underwriting, risk management, telematics, claims, you name it. So as I move to AWS in my current role, I lead the go-to-market and business development for the insurance industry for North America region. So it's really cool given my prior background, and now I get to actually work with all large insurers, probably many of you who are on the call today, and helping them really understand how technology can enable the facilitation and the agility that's needed in today's world to really accelerate the adoption of topics like that we are looking at today. So great to be here and look forward to the discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you, Arthi. Really appreciate that. And it's great to have you as well because you see so across so many different companies. So you'll have that more global view. And finally, let's go to Dennis. Dennis, tell us about yourself.
Thank you, June. Hello, everyone. I'm Dennis Hickey. I'm with Grid Dynamics. I've been in the insurance sector for 20 plus years in a role more of a partner, helping people with their digital transformations across the technology sectors. And, you know, that you were talking about different business lines in actuarial and claims and things like that. How do you pull that all together? A lot of focus recently in AI and how do we handle AI and how do we get value out of AI? To me, this reminds me of the retail sector when they were saying Amazon is something we have a little project with e-commerce, but then all of a sudden it was kind of threatening. And with some of the insurtechs that are coming out, I think this is really important topic. And we're seeing a lot of the carriers saying we have to get to the next level of digital transformation. And it's a fascinating topic. So thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. We're so happy to have you. And my name is June Bauer, and I think I'm the only one here who has not worked in insurance, if you can believe it. I have a little bit because I worked for a few startups, but my career is mainly in marketing, starting at Apple in the very, very early 80s, working with about 300 people there and Steve Jobs and the rest of the crew. And moving on to being the CMO, vice president of marketing for many companies in the Silicon Valley in technology. Today, I'm a consultant, and I am so lucky to get to work with Grid Dynamics on Dynamic Talks. And it gives me great pleasure to get to meet amazing people like the people on this panel today. So again, welcome to everyone. Welcome to our panelists. Again, feel free to add questions in the Q&A if there's anything that you want to ask about to our panelists or anything you want to comment on. Now, I want to turn to you, our audience, and ask you a few questions because it's always really helpful to get a sense of where you're at on this topic so that our panelists can do the best job of focusing on what you care about. So we've got two poll questions for you today. And if we can bring up the first one, there should be a little pop-up on your screen. You can just select the one answer that best describes where your company is at right now. So take a read, choose one of these, and we'll take a look at the answers. Okay, why don't we bring up the responses? Okay, it looks like nobody is just starting. But the rest of you have started your journey and are somewhere along that journey. So that's great to hear. And we've got kind of an equal split. So that's going to help us. We'll touch on each phase a little bit as we have our discussion today. Why don't we go to the next panel question or audience question? Sorry. All right. On this one, we want you to choose every one of these that applies to you and your company. So the topics that interest me the most for today's discussion are how to. And just go ahead and click any of these that you find interesting. Okay, I think we can bring up the responses. Well, how to create an omni-channel experience definitely looks like it is very popular. Create a better omni-channel experience is number one. And then we've got a couple that are pretty popular. So building a connected digital experience and determining the best technologies. These are all important. Partner is important. So yeah, we got a good mix across the board. So that's good because we were planning to address all of these. So I think we're pretty well prepared. And I think our panelists are going to have some interesting things to contribute. All right. How about if we go to the next slide? Can we bring up the next slide, please? So I want to kick this off today by telling you a story. And of course, it's not going to be about my experience working in insurance because I haven't, but it is going to be about my experience as a consumer using insurance. So I have a cat. His name's Zeus. He looks pretty close to this cat right here. He's a Maine Coon cat. And Zeus was a bad boy in his first year of life and fell out of a tree and had to go to the vet. And it was very expensive, very expensive. And then a couple of years later, he got sick and he had to go back to the vet and he had to spend about 3 days at the vet. And for those of you who have pets, you know, That is very expensive. So my husband and I talked about it. We said, you know what? He's only 3 years old. He's already used up 2 of his lives. I think we need to get pet insurance. My husband said, oh, our insurer, which is, by the way, a very big company. You would all know the name if I said it, but I'm not going to say it today. Just there was PR in the newspaper that wrote up that they now have pet insurance that you can buy. And we buy all our insurance from this one insurance company. It just makes it easier for us. So I said, okay, I'll take care of that. So I called the insurance broker and had a discussion with her. And I said, so we hear you have pet insurance. She said, really? I don't think so. I said, what do you mean? She said, I don't think we have pet insurance. And she said, let me, I said, my husband read it in the paper. There was a whole article that talked about it. And she said, well, let me go check with my business partners who we've all been out because we've had COVID. So she comes back to the phone and she says, well, it turns out, yes, we do have pet insurance, but as a broker, we chose not to take it. So we're not really carrying it. I'm like, really? And she said, oh, and by the way, it's a third-party company, a well-known pet insurer company that we're offering. But she said, but don't worry, because there's a broker just a few blocks away from here who has the insurance. So you could go to that broker and I can connect you up with him. Well, what they didn't know was also between the time that we had chosen them as our broker, we had moved. So we were nowhere near that other broker. We had no relationship to that part of the country. I was like, are you kidding me? And I looked at the insurance price of what I could get just buying directly from the company that was offering the insurance versus my own big company. And I said, it is not worth the headache of going and building a relationship with another broker just for pet insurance when I can buy this online from somebody else. So I said, no, thank you. So I ended up getting my insurance, but not through my broker. And I have to say, it was an experience that stunned me. They knew nothing about me. They didn't even know about their own products and what they had. And I found it hard to believe, but I will tell you that as a consumer in a world that has gone so digital, that can be a very frustrating experience and seems very behind the times. So today, what I want to do is have a discussion with our panelists about why that is, what's happening, and are things going to change? So in the future, maybe my insurance company might contact me when they see I get a cat and ask if I want insurance instead of the very passive experience I had where they didn't even know they carried it. So let's close the slides down and start our discussion. So I would love to kick this off, Arthi, with you and ask you a question. And that is, what's the value of having a 360-degree view of your customers in your mind? And, you know, what are some of the things that you could do if you had that view that today isn't possible?
Yeah, thanks, June. And actually, the example you were just sharing, right? I mean, that I think really describes the problem that is very relevant in the insurance industry. But more importantly, I think since COVID, when the physical interactions, I mean, to your point, having kind of moved away from the broker that we used to, not just the 360-degree view, which is very, very important, but also just having a mechanism for your customers, whether it's your end customers or it could be your agents and brokers or distribution partners. I think that is really relevant. Actually, in my role, I hear that, I mean, with all the insurance companies that we work with, from an AWS standpoint, we hear this as probably, like I would say, within the top 2 problems that everybody's looking to get. And, you know, one thing that I constantly hear, and I'm sure folks on this call will relate to, so very simple example is in the contact centers, right? When maybe like you called and you were trying to talk to a customer service representative, those CSRs are not really equipped with that information about the customer that's calling in. I mean, let alone having a holistic view of what their needs could be and what would be the right recommendation for them. So that's a problem we see over and over again. And same thing with the agents. Like if your distribution partners are agents, we don't have that information readily available to empower them. What is their application status, claim status, so on and so forth. So insurance typically has been very like siloed and disparate kind of data systems. And that's why I think some of these problems exist one of the things that, at least from an AWS and the technology that we offer, we've been kind of working with a lot of large insurance carriers within the US and actually globally. One of the examples I can share is this large insurance company, one of the largest life insurance companies in the US. They had a very similar problem. They wanted to kind of get to the root of the problem, and how do we really enable our end customers as well as our distribution partners with information that they can use at their fingertips to provide that personalized experience. So what we ended up doing, we helped them build their contact center solution using this cloud-based technology, which basically will, within 30 days of the project kickoff, this carrier was able to deploy it with their agents in US and also in the Asia Pacific region, taking calls and supporting end-to-end testing. And what it really helped was their end customers were able to go in, self-service capabilities using chatbots and things of that nature, but also allowing customers to kind of just go in and service their policies themselves. And when the CSRs were getting calls, as an example, they had a holistic view of the customer calling in. There was sentiment analysis, as an example, behind the scenes. So you could even see, what maybe they're angry, they're frustrated, or things of that nature. And how do you really help them get the right coverage and answer the questions so the customer doesn't have to repeatedly provide that information over and over again. So I think that's really the power of having that 360 view on what are your customer needs in a customized manner so you can help them understand as their life changes along the way. So let me pause there and turn it over back to you, Joan.
Yeah, that is a great story, by the way. I love it. And I'm going to have to connect you up with my insurance company. That's all I can say, because that sounds really awesome from a consumer point of view. So thanks for sharing that. And Vaishali, how about you? What's your take on this question?
Yeah. So first of all, are the great points, right? So I would like to add to some of the comments that you've made, and some of them may be a repeat, but still. So let's talk about the traditional model. So when we talk about the traditional model, it's really product or policy centric. So as long as you have a product with a customer, you're selling a product, or they have a policy with you, we were like happy with that. And it worked really well for each line of business to have independent relationship with the customer. And that worked well. But now, to stay afloat and thrive in the market, to hold a competitive edge, the organizations have no choice to become customer centric. And to achieve that, it is imperative to have this consolidated view of their relationship with the customer. And so what is this 360-degree view or consolidated view that we're talking about? It's not just the intrinsic data of the customer about the address and the location and the contact information, all of that, but it is the master data that we have, which means that there is no duplication, but also we have so uniquely able to identify a customer, but then also augmented with additional transactional data that we have, like CRM data. We have policy and coverage for this customer. Their claim history, their active claims as of now, their preferences. So when we put all of this together, all structured and unstructured data that can enhance the profile is what we call this 360-degree view. And for external facing underwriters or account executives, having this information like customer growth strategy, their go-to-market strategy, their total exposure with us, their active claims, is incredibly important so that they can build credibility with the customer. It helps them build a very positive business relationship with the customer. It is key to keep and accelerate this relationship, and it helps them add to the business, right? Cross-sell and the upsell opportunities. The most important thing that this view does for our underwriters is that it gives them the opportunity. It frees them up from the mundane work of actually collecting data before going to the broker or the customer. It allows them to spend all their energy on creating that human touch, right? So that is actually very critical. So at Zurich, I think that is one of the key reasons why we believe that this information, this view is very critical. Internal facing, if you think about it, that has a lot of impact too, of course, right? So it allows us to manage our risk more effectively because we are able to see where is the accumulation, how much are we investing behind this customer, etc. We use this data to develop analytics and generate insights that feed back to the underwriter because then they are able to help the customers as well. And then the most important thing, in my opinion, is to manage fraud. I mean, okay, not maybe the most important, but very important, because it is not just about the dollar value. It impacts the reputation of the insurance company, and it can negatively impact customer retention, right? So some of those things are very critical. So if I try to wrap up what I said, I think the customer 360-degree view allows the insurer to embrace a customer-centric view, develop a value proposition that helps differentiate them from their competitors. It allows the carrier to foresee and capitalize on new opportunities. And finally, it helps them retain and gain loyalty of their customer. And I guess that's what we want, right?
Yeah, I love your summary. I think that's absolutely beautifully put. And as I was listening to you, I was really fascinated with what you were saying. And I can't imagine even the transition that's had to take place inside your company in order to start to think about this differently. But it's really amazing. And I think ultimately putting the customer at the center, I think it's going to give you the ability to build much closer relationships with each of your clients. And relationships are what build trust and brand loyalty. And it's just such a wonderful, virtuous cycle. So I love what you're doing there. It's fantastic. So let's kind of continue this conversation. I have another somewhat related question, but I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts on this, which is, how would this 360 view translate into pulling together a omni-channel experience? So using all the channels, which is something that's near and dear to most marketers' hearts. And it'd be helpful, I think, for our audience today to understand how you're thinking about. And Vaishali, maybe you can just kick that off for us and let us know what your organization is thinking around omni-channel.
Sure. And so like all other organizations, all other insurance carriers, it is big for us. And it's simple. It's data, right? So it boils down to data and how we leverage that. So taking a step back, for omni-channel experience to effectively work, we need to consider two things. One is digitalization, that is delivering through a variety of digital platforms. But then equally important is digitization, which is really the back-end processes and operations supported by connected system and connected data. So it's a combination of two. And for both, 360-degree view is absolutely critical. And if we have not been successful in going digital or fully digital so far, it's probably the single most important reason why we haven't, because of the incomplete and disjointed view of customer information within our organization or any organization. So it is a single view of the data that helps to deliver the accurate results in a responsive manner, regardless of how the customer approaches us. So insurance industry or insurance carriers are quite aware that the customer today no longer behaves in the same way that it used to. They are driven by the retail industry. It's no secret. We have often been asked that if I can see my pizza order status without calling anyone, then why can't I see my claim status in a similar way? Why can I not check online an installment that is due or make an electronic payment with a click of a button? Very reasonable ask from the customer, and that is something that each insurance carrier now has to support. We are a little bit behind the game compared to all other industries, but we are catching up. So basically, you see that the explosion of digital channels in the retail industry has dramatically changed how customers want to reach, engage, and interact with the carriers. And so at Zurich, we are very, very mindful of that. And like I mentioned early on, we had this digital program that we started up. The idea there was really to contemplate and implement a way so that we are able to engage our customers in a manner that they feel comfortable, that they want to engage with us, whether it is any time of the day, through any channel, whether it is doing things on their own, things like that. So we have customer service through phone, text, chatbots. We have web-based self-service capability, and we are building everything as we go, right? So it's not a journey that has been completed. It is still going on, but that's where we are. The key part of this is that, and this is where 360 view comes in play, is that through all these channels, they must get the same experience, the same information, and the same feeling that they belong with us. And that is where our focus is. So it comes as a no surprise when we say that omnichannel is table stakes. But the key is that the outcome across all channels must be the same. A single source of truth must be consistent. And we know that the customers will switch between channels. So when they do, they must get the same information. And I apologize, I'm repeating myself. But if we don't do that, it will immediately impact their confidence in us. And that is never good for our business, where trust and relationship is paramount. So I hope I tried to answer your question.
Oh yes, that was beautifully put. And I cannot agree more as a consumer that omni-channel is something I expect, and I expect it from my insurance company. And I just cannot wait to pay my insurance bills online. That's a beautiful thing. I hope that's coming soon. All right. Well, Arthi, I'd love to hear from you on the same topic and hear your point of view seeing across multiple companies.
Yeah, thanks, June. And actually, Vaishali hit on a lot of different points that were, kind of on my mind as well, and what I'm noticing as I work with the different insurance companies as well. So just a couple of things I will kind of reiterate and also add maybe a little bit more color from what I'm seeing. So yes, Vaishali, absolutely correct. It does boil down to data. And on that, I would like to add, so when I'm talking to, and these are all large, mid-size, all kinds of insurance carriers, both on the P&C and life insurance. So, when we talk about digitization, when we talk about digital user engagement, sometimes it's a little bit misunderstood, I feel, when the companies are thinking, okay, they just need to enable a mechanism to, for example, like a mobile app or maybe a web portal. Can they not only quote, but they can also buy online, right? So those are fantastic mechanisms, I think, the insurance companies, because that's just enabling a touch point with your end customer. But I think what's even more powerful, going back to that data comment, is really how are you collecting the information behind the scenes from these interactions with your customer? And rather than being kind of this reactive, insurance has been pretty transactional. As we all know, we pay our bills and it feels like we're just giving money. And then there's the moment of truth when a claim happens. And unfortunately, many times people are not satisfied with that experience, right? So there's this negative kind of connotation to the whole experience. So the consumer is always feeling like they are not getting kind of the value for what they're looking for, right? So how do we kind of change not only that perception, but based on their interactions, like Vaishali was pointing out, when they want to interact, which is kind of dictated by retail, what is the status of my claim? What is the status of my coverages? Maybe I have a son or a daughter who's now a teenager and started driving, and what kind of unique recommendation do you have for me, rather than me trying to kind of search for the right level of coverages? Now, do I need to add umbrella, right? So on and so forth. So just as a quick example before I wrap up. So absolutely, I think these are all the things that I'm seeing, and the different insurance companies kind of depending on the stage they are in their journey, they're really trying to kind of figure out how to kind of tackle this and, kind of move forward on that. One of these insurance companies that we recently were working with, and then what they launched is because they were seeing a lot of, for example, interaction on their web portal. People will come in and searching for coverages, and then there's a drop off, right? So what they really wanted to kind of take that data and enhance that experience for the customer by, I think Vaishali was alluding a little bit to that as well, where how do you kind of engage that customer who was just maybe passively browsing for different, coverages or products, but they couldn't really figure it out, and maybe they weren't really comfortable going to an agent, or maybe you don't even have an agent. Direct is your distribution platform. So they were able to mine that data, throw it into a data lake, and then really kind of create using AI/ML personalized engine for these recommendations. And then they would reach or almost like nudge these customers to go, based on these personalized recommendations that the company was able to provide on kind of the next best action, right? And they were using that again, whether they were comfortable using their text messaging because they provided their cell phone, or it could be an email, but things of that nature. But the idea was, okay, I'm going to come to your website, look for information, but now, I don't know, I got confused. And then the company is able to follow up back with the customer with a little bit more personalized kind of take on what they're looking for and help them understand, and maybe guide to an agent in this example as well. So that's really something super powerful, where you feel like your needs are being catered to based on your preferences.
Okay, well, I love that. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Amazon in the very early and
Exactly.
the whole idea that it felt like Amazon knew you better than your family members knew you, because they could recommend the books that you really wanted to read.
You're absolutely right.
It's so cool how that has now moved into the insurance business, and that idea of providing recommendations, we all know, is so powerful, and again, really appealing to me as a consumer. So appreciate that. That is great. Let's talk now. We've been talking about the 360-degree view and how it affects omnichannel, but let's talk about how it affects kind of the whole journey, which really is about, starting with point of sale all the way through to like a claim payment. And I'm interested in how that experience could be optimized if you had this 360 view. And Rebecca, you've been waiting so patiently. Let's kick this one off with you. Can you share your thoughts?
Absolutely. So I'll push this in a slightly broader direction than we've been talking about the 360 view. And I'll just start it with the comment that I think to really understand the customer, you have to meet them where they're shopping for other products and services that are valuable to them, or engaging in other customer journeys. So I'll give a personal example and then talk about some things we've done at Nationwide. Yesterday, I booked a flight, and as I was paying for my ticket, right in that process was an offer for travel insurance that I could accept or decline. I didn't have to go look for travel insurance online. I didn't have to call an agent. I could do it all within that transaction. I know the airline doesn't underwrite travel insurance. They have a partnership with a company to provide that. So I think especially personal lines insurance has become increasingly commoditized, and it generally isn't something that people look forward to shopping for. It's not usually a fun shopping experience. Partnering with another company to offer insurance in their journey also enables a more holistic view of that customer, of shopping behaviors, and how to optimize the entire buying process. So this could look like offering insurance in a mortgage application process, having it just be part of that mortgage company's transaction. It could look like embedding car insurance in the car buying process, or even embedding servicing functions in another digital ecosystem. So example from Nationwide, we have a partnership with Ford, where Ford customers can buy insurance while they're in the Ford Pass app. And they can use the Ford Pass app to do other things related to their vehicle. They can even use it to start their car in winter. So it's an app that they go to do things that are valuable to them, and they can get a quote for insurance. But the real value of that is that Ford will pass us, with the customer's consent, information about the customer and information about the vehicle. So it shortens the quoting process. It's a better experience for the customer. And then jointly, we can optimize the overall experience, not just the insurance purchasing part of that. We can look at the end-to-end within our digital ecosystem and the partners ecosystem, and find out how we can optimize it. And so you could imagine where that could go in the future, even embedding servicing functions or letting customers do things like file a claim where they don't have to go directly to the insurance company. They can do those in other experiences that are kind of what they're natively doing. So June, back to your example about pet insurance, imagine if you had been shopping online for pet food or pet toys or whatever you buy, and having an offer of insurance right there might have been, could have been another possibly more appealing way to go about that.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's such a great story. And I think, it's almost like a triple win, because your partner wins, your agency wins, and the consumer wins when those things get put together. Because for me as a consumer, finding out about insurance I need when I care the most about it is going to cause me to want it. And it's going to be convenient, and it's going to work for me in my life. Having to go proactively and search for it later, or not even know I need it until I've spent, $5,000 on my cat, not so good. So that's fantastic. I love those stories, and I love the idea of bringing partners into the mix so that you can get to the consumer at the right time. Very cool. So, Arthi, how about you? Do you have any experience seeing how this whole journey can play better together?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we think about the customer, and just like Rebecca was describing, right? So before the customer becomes a customer for an insurance company, right? That they are searching for the right amount of coverage. And usually sometimes it's like a life event change. Maybe you moved, maybe you bought a new car. Maybe, like I was using an example earlier, you have a child that's getting ready to drive, or maybe you're planning for retirement, you're planning for your kids' education, whatever that trigger is, right? You as a customer are looking for, okay, what should I buy? And again, as much as I love insurance is not one of those glamorous things that we're all thinking about all the time ourselves, right? I mean, it's not something that's top of mind. It's only like when that need arises. So how do you, as an insurance company, when I'm working with them, again, using, the technology lens, how do we really enable them kind of, I think Vishali, somebody was making a comment, like, how do we make that customer-centric view? And at Amazon, we love this terminology where we always say we work backwards from the customer. So how do you start from the customer and work backwards to really solve for that problem and create a solution around it? So it really starts from the point of sale. What are your customer needs at that point in their life journey? Where are they headed? So how do you really seamlessly enable that experience so you can maybe even pre-fill a lot of information to the application process and the customer doesn't have to go around? And how do you use, again, those personalized engines to really advise on the right coverage? Because sometimes what you don't know, the customer doesn't know, oh, do I need water backup? I live in Illinois, for example, in Chicago, do I need water backup? If you live on the West Coast, do I need earthquake? Things of that nature. Sometimes the customer is not well informed. So how do you really take the customer from the point of sale acquisition process to having them feel comfortable, empowered to make the changes to their needs and policies at the time that they need to make that change, at the channel that they need to make that change, and create that knowledge-based search and awareness, and also from a communication and agent support, digital assistance, so on and so forth. So one of the examples that's super cool here is one of these large PNC insurance company that we worked with recently. They were really looking to simplify the insurance process for its customers, specifically around making filing of the claims. Again, like I said, that's the moment of truth for the customer. But really, like, not trying to make it cumbersome. We talked about what is the status of my claim, right? So the company was able to create a mechanism and a process for their customers where the customers could just go in, use their mobile phone, quickly upload images or videos. And then the insurance company was able to actually very quickly authenticate the claims really within the matter of the same day, especially for the simpler claims, and actually send the check back to the customer, deposit it into their checking account or whatever their payment preferences were. So imagine that experience versus you trying to call the company, filing a claim, waiting for the adjuster to show up, so on and so forth, and then trying to get an estimate from a body shop. And here you have an experience. Of course, there are going to be claims where an adjuster is still needed, but for the majority of the claims, if you're able to really kind of streamline an experience like that, that's super powerful, not just for the customer, but it's a lot of savings for the insurance company as well, because you do end up saving a lot of, from an expense standpoint as well.
I love that story. I mean, that's, I hope I don't get in another accident, but if I do, I would love to have my my company actually pay me that way. That is very cool. And that I love your point about it helping both the insurance company as well as the customer of that company. So that's a great example. Well, let's talk for a minute about maybe something that's kicked off a lot of this focus on customers. And that is companies like Lemonade. I'm sorry to bring up the name on this webinar, and I hope I haven't offended anyone, but these kinds of companies are starting completely new and completely digital. And that can put pressure on incumbents. And I'm just wondering how this change and this new kind of competition, how are the incumbent carriers kind of stepping up to this? And I'm interested in what you're doing and what kind of transformation is taking place in your companies. And Dennis, I want to kick it off with you because, boy, have you been patient. And I know you have years in insurance, plus now working at Grid Dynamics, you see across so many insurance companies. So I'd love to hear from you. And you're on mute, so just click. And we understand that because you've been on mute for a long time. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, June. With the InsurTechs, we are quite involved with those players, but most of the activities with the existing firms, right? And they're saying like, well, what about like Amazon one click? What are we going to do with insurance in that world, right? So when we look at it from data governance kind of perspective, so everybody's touched on the data piece, right? So if you look at the workflow, like the claim all the way through the process, where does that data go? What systems is it going to? What are the subsystems it's touching? So to take a step back, look at that from a data governance perspective. We have some people, I can't give names, but they're looking to have it fully automated, $2.5 million claim done by the software, AI ML, like within an hour. Right. So that's more on a home type thing. But we also have the pictures. You take a picture with a phone and it blows back the bill of materials of that car. And it's fascinating. It's like, I didn't know all those pieces are in the car, but it's like somebody who's from an auto body shop knows exactly those pieces. Right. And then it's not like the adjusters are going away and like say a car type situation like that. They're advising, they're complementing, they're checking. Right. But what it means, the speed's important. So a couple of people have done some studies. The first 3 minutes when a claim's being processed are so critical because usually think if there's an accident, somebody backs into your car in a parking lot or something like that. People are upset. That's not what you're thinking about. You don't know what to do. So some people call. Now I have young children starting to drive. They would only text, they wouldn't call anybody, that kind of stuff. But it's like, please just take a picture, calmly step people through like an educational, quick training step, almost like, please do this, this, that, because that calms them down. But what happens is that make or break moment, and that's 3 minutes. Anyways, you can enable that. And you look at what people use and need and call and talk to in contact centers and things like that. If you can smooth that out just a little bit, that can make the difference from them coming home and telling their friends and family, what a great insurance company. You won't believe somebody backed into my car at the supermarket, to like, oh, it was horrible, right? So then we come in with data governance for you and look at that. right? And then you can add in AI and ML ops, and there's a lot of technologies under all these things to speed it up and make it efficient. But basically, the good news is the big insurance carriers totally get this, right? They understand it. The bad news is they have a lot of legacy environments that are hard to pull together. So it's like the data from one system looks totally different from something else. And it really, and it's a beautiful situation for an AWS, or, that type of cloud migration, to reduce the costs and then make it seamless, right? So that's the whole thought process. How do you make it seamless? And so that's what we're seeing. A lot of people trying to do that. We have some people to the comment on buying a car, working on, we want to be in under a minute through, technically APIs, things like that, be able to have an insurance policy when somebody's buying a car or leasing a car on the table with them. And I was like, that's really fast. Because when I think about how I would do it, we would call our broker and ask the broker, and the broker would go figure it out. And the broker's great, and we know the broker and all that stuff. But my son was getting his first car, and he calls me. He says, Dad, I'm leasing this car. Now we've discussed this, and all this is a big move for him, right? And he's like, and this insurance policy's here. Am I supposed to get insurance? I can just sign it right here as I sign for the lease. Now, of course, I said, well, time out. We have a broker. Of course, they're learning. They don't understand. But to him, it's like, that's what I do, right? That it's just so fast. So we've seen some people have that down to 42 seconds to be able to do that. At a point of sale for purchasing a car, to be able to have the insurance done. They're checking your driver history. They're checking, your credit. Now, of course, you have to give consent, but you're also doing that for the car and the lease. And so I was asking my son about the insurance side of it. And he's like, I said, what did you think? He goes, I just felt like they really knew what they were doing. Right. And it was easy. And he was stressed because this is a big commitment for him, huge commitment. Right. And it's like, okay. And he goes, no, it was just smooth. So smooth. But then when you come from the technology side, you got to look at that data governance, what data is moving across that process. So that's what we do quite a bit. But the table stakes of omni-channel are going up dramatically, right? And that's for multiple reasons. And everyone here is very knowledgeable. And, some places are different places in the journey. But I think there's going to be some people who are going to pull away in the market space. And that's what we're starting to see. So I think that's a commentary to share what people are doing in that space.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. And some great examples there that really, for me, as I listened to you, brought to light that as a consumer, we have so many emotions associated with insurance. And I like that the insurance companies are starting to consider those. For example, when you get in an accident, it's absolutely horrible. And you are just, fraught usually, and you don't know what to do. And at the same time, at the beginning of the experience, it can be annoying or confounding in terms of what you choose and what you buy. So, really focusing in on those emotions and how consumers are really feeling, I love it. And if that can actually happen, I think that's going to make a big difference for consumers. So thank you for sharing that. Rebecca, I want to turn to you now because you work at a big carrier, and maybe you can give us your thoughts on this question.
Sure. I think in terms of incumbents, they don't have the burden of the legacy platforms that have been mentioned previously, or the insurtechs, but if the incumbents can get past that, they do have the advantage usually of more of a countrywide presence, so they can move from innovation to scale more easily. And I think that really is the advantage. I'll give some examples of things that either we're doing or I've seen in the market. One area that I would say is still being shaped, definitely not completely figured out, is investment in smart home. So you see a lot of carriers looking for ways to innovate using data from smart home devices like water sensors or energy usage monitoring, even pet monitoring, and partnering with device providers or other companies to see how they can educate consumers, get the devices in the home, And it helps the consumer because it can mitigate an event, a loss event before it happens, but it also gives the carrier really valuable data that can be used for product development and underwriting. One of the things that Nationwide has done, and we're fortunate because we started on our journey to digitize pretty early, we have used some of our technology to take cost out of the process. So we have an API that we launched last year that verifies insurance. So a mortgage company, when someone's closing their loan, they need to verify that the applicant has a home insurance policy. Some property management companies want to verify that their tenants maintain their renters insurance. So we have an API that they can connect to, and it does all of that in a high volume digitally. It saves those companies from having to make phone calls to Nationwide to do that. It speeds up their process on behalf of their customer, and it takes cost out of our environment because we don't have those phone calls to answer either. And then the other example I would provide of an incumbent carrier, sometimes I go out and just do quotes from competitors to see what their quoting experience was like. And one company that I quoted recently, all I had to enter was my state and my license plate number, and it pulled back half of the quote just with that. So you can see even the big, the incumbents are finding ways to connect to publicly available data, working with third parties to digitize and automate parts of the process, which benefits the carrier and the customer in the overall experience.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and that sounds absolutely great. I love it. Well, we're quickly running out of time, and there's one last question I just wanted to have Dennis, if you could touch on, but I'm going to give you 1 minute. So, okay. So please be brief because I want to end on the hour. But I think it's a really important, which is maybe what are the 3 top technologies that insurance companies should think about in terms of needing to get to this great experience? What are the 3 most important things for them to consider in the technology world?
I would say number 1 is artificial intelligence. When you look, McKinsey has a study out saying that $1.1 trillion with a T can be saved by insurance annually, right? So how do they get to that? That's past me, but we're seeing people work on pieces of that. I think the other thing in property and casualty is drones and robots. And I've been in a number of projects on the commercial side where churches and things of that nature, they're having high claims because nobody's there during the week. And they have a drone check the roof in the snowstorm and going to the, let's check the house and see what the temperature is so the pipes don't burst. That's like a huge claim saving. And I think the third area is on fraud. I mean, some of the ML ops that you can do today, you can catch fraud earlier with machine learning, right? So one of the big consultancies is saying 6.8 billion a year can be saved. And so we're seeing a lot of that. The data's there, like in the big carriers. So ultimately, the big carriers are the brain trust, right? So, but those would be the 3 areas. So the takeaway would be look at the AI, right? First, right? Look at your IoT and drones. People have fleets of drones. There's somebody who has a fleet of 700 drones right now in property and casualty. So this is not happening, right? So, and then, just keep working on the fraud side because that's just pure money to your bottom line.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Is that a minute?
Yes,
I know it's hard for me to do a minute.
I think you did it very quickly. And I think what you had to say was extremely helpful and enlightening, certainly from my point of view. So I appreciate it. Very well done. I do want to thank the whole panel today. I loved this, and I am sure our audience did too. You brought this whole topic to life, and the fact that you all are so experienced in insurance. It was really an amazing discussion for me, and I am so grateful to all of you for joining us today and being a part of this and bringing such a wealth of wisdom and making it interesting as well. I also want to thank our audience. Really appreciate all of you joining us. We know it's a lot to ask for you to take time out of your day, and we are so grateful that you do and that you join us for our dynamic talks. And we sure hope you can join us for another, that I know we'll have another one coming up soon. So thanks to everybody. Please go off and have a good day and think about how your insurance can and will get better. And we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.